Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag ODPH? Here we go. And welcome back to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. I am your host, Ken M., and sitting across from me this week is the sound guy galore, JR.
Oh, you know I'm right here.
And to the right, checking the cell phone to get the stats you need to know about, it's the intern himself, Padawan J.
Hello.
Folks, we got a lot to discuss, so thank you for tuning in, and let's waste no more time. The biggest sports story of the week has to be the NFL Combine. Dare I say it's the official kickoff of free agency because teams are watching the players and they're deciding, do we go get a free agent when it opens up on March 14th, or do we put it all on stock of the people we see at the Combine? Thoughts on that?
Well, we now know Saquon Barkley is going to be a Cleveland Brown, so that's good.
You would think.
If they don't ditch the pick.
I'll say we could go through the Cleveland Browns pick history in, let's just say, the last 25 years and almost do look at who they could have taken scenario.
I mean, for what it's worth, Myles Garrett wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
Well, the jury's still out because he had some injuries this past season, but the jury's still out of saying it. I wouldn't say he's a bust, but I think it's still wait and see.
I mean, what was in his first game at home? He did have a sack.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I mean, positive.
Yeah.
We're making forward progress. That's all that makes. That's right. Forward progress. Here we go.
Cleveland has taken steps in the right direction, and now after Barkley had one of the most impressive combines, it's very hard to pass up. If I am the Cleveland GM, I take him number one.
They really don't have a running back.
They don't. And to go in on the quarterbacks, I don't know. I mean, I'm still on the fence of if I'm really sold on taking a quarterback at number one. If you have a once-in-a-lifetime running back that can be your franchise stud for 5, maybe 10 years.
Because he's a franchise running back who also does punt and kick returns.
Well, they wouldn't. I don't think they'd have him do that in Cleveland, but I think that they would be the workhorse back. They would make sure that he gets the ball as much as he can and really help that offense, especially if you have a young quarterback that's going to be taking the helm. It makes the most sense to me, but who knows what's going to happen with Cleveland.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, too, it's like their carousel that is starting quarterbacks. I mean, there's no consistency whatsoever over the last fill-in-the-blank years.
25, 30 years or so.
Right. So, I mean, you keep throwing all these – DeShone Kizer, I mean, that poor kid, he's got nothing. So, a defense knows with a running game that's very lackluster, for lack of a better term. I mean, if you get a guy like a Saquon Barkley who goes in there and he can take a little bit of pressure off your quarterback, now you have defenses that have to play the run, and you can give some of these guys a chance to at least make better throws, get receivers open. I mean, do something with that offense, because most of these defenses, as you know, are just low. You know, they just back off into coverage. You know, they drop 8 and it's pick city.
Yeah, I mean, I think adding a running back is the smart move, but it's hard to say because there's a lot of teams that are thinking about trading up. Would Cleveland trade the pick now?
There is rumor and talk that, they are open to trading the first pick.
And I guess I would say it has to really be worthwhile because I think Barkley is your hands-down number one. But if they decide to move him, you got to kind of figure where he's going.
I mean, let us not remember, folks, the wonderful one-spot move for Trubisky that we saw. Anybody recall said, I mean, you could get something wild for – I mean, the Colts are there at 3, so you might see him do something crazy. I mean, they move up to get your number one franchise running back who is an absolute threat immediately to affect your team. Right now, this is ready to go.
It would be kind of crazy for them not to try. I mean, Cleveland has to wait for the right package. I think they're going to have a very smart draft this year. I think that they have too many picks in the first couple rounds to not hit them out of the park. And I know that the history of Cleveland has been kind of murky when taking quarterbacks. So that being said, I think Barkley is hands down number one. I know Daniel John, who does Rolling Them Dice on the blogs on the website, was chiming in, and he was saying that Barkley would not go number one. He's worried about his production and big games would bother him, but he says he's going to go in the top 6. I think if Cleveland does pass on him at 1, yeah, he's going to not make it out of the top 5.
No, not at all.
I think if anything, a team would trade up if it went quarterback, however it's going to play out. I think some team would desperately trade up.
There are a lot of teams I think that would trade up for Saquon Barkley.
I mean, you immediately have the Giants right behind him.
Yeah.
That need somebody right now, especially with an offense that's seriously in question. I mean, I wouldn't say it's seriously in question, but you've got Odell coming back, the Brandon Marshall. I mean, is he going to come back or are they going to resign him? I don't even remember if they signed him for 2 years or if it was just a 1-year deal. But besides the point, they have him, what have you. But if you bring in Saquon Barkley right now, you have Eli Manning. At least it's some sort of running game that's effective immediately. So, again, if Cleveland passes and then no one jumps up to get him and they either trade down or whatever the case may be or quarterback goes, there's no way he's getting past the Giants or Colts at 3. There's no way Cleveland gets another crack at him at 4.
No, there's no way anyone gets a crack at him because I think if Cleveland, for God knows what reason, doesn't take him for whatever addles their brain at that moment, the Giants will absolutely jump on it because, Eli's offensive line wasn't great last year, but how good of a run game did they have last year?
Well, I think that's also a good point you bring up, Pat. Their line was atrocious. I mean, Coach Duffy will be the first one to tell you how bad they were. So would they jump on a running back if they don't fix their line woes?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
To answer JR's question about Brandon Marshall, they do have him locked up for this year. He signed a 2-year deal last year.
But just think about if you've got your Eli Manning, Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham Jr., and Brandon Marshall.
That's a decent. Damn, that's decent.
It's a potent offense. But if your quarterback's on his tail half the games,
Saquon Barkley can block.
Well, he can block, but
at least it helps some. I guess
it helps some. No, it helps some. But I don't know if necessarily the Giants want to go that route. I would think they would because I think you have a great opportunity to have a running back that's going to be your franchise running back for many seasons if he stays healthy. I don't know if the Giants are going to jump on that. I think the Giants might be thinking long term and thinking what's the plan for when Eli goes, which there are quarterbacks out there to take.
No, I mean I'm a huge fan of Mel Kiper, and I really like how he does his drafts. You take the best guy in the draft right now. The offensive line may be a struggle, but you know what? You can't pass on a guy like a Saquon Barkley right now who's going to be your running back for the future, regardless if Eli's there or not. You got a plan for him being gone, and that's besides the point. However, when you've got a guy right now who's going to immediately turn that running game around, and he's the best player in the draft, hands down, you got to take him.
So
you can't not turn this down. I mean, you've got to take him. You can get an offensive lineman, second round. You can start looking down there. I mean, you're not going to get. It's a decision you have to make. Sure, you're not going to get the number one guy because, of course, he's going to go in the first round. But you can at least use maybe pick your second round pick, your third round pick to find those guys, work with them a little bit, train them. But I'm telling you, if you pass on a guy like that, a lineman's not going to do you any good.
Yeah, because I know, particularly with last year, when defenses were playing against the Giants, running game was not exactly a potent threat. Trust me, I had at least 2 of their running backs in fantasy last year. They really didn't do all that much.
Like, it's sad when you can say that you just to make it sound better from a fantasy owner standpoint, and even just from the team standpoint. When you're saying 7 feet per carry just to make it sound better than it actually is, that's when you know it's bad.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Shane Vereen, former Patriot, love the guy. Didn't do anything for me in fantasy last year.
Well, that has to go with the quarterback woes and the line woes. I mean, there was just so much going on in New York that they want to be the first ones to forget it. And doing a smart thing at the number 2 pick, that would help a lot. I mean, I just think Cleveland with the new GM, I just can't see him passing on Barkley. I just can't.
Neither can I. That's why I say the only reason they would is if something has addled their brain or God knows what reason.
Well, I think unless they're sold on getting Darnold as their quarterback, but I don't know if they want to necessarily go that route. It's a roll of the dice, no pun intended. Of do you go get the quarterback that was good in college and would they fit your system? And there's a lot more elements that go into it, or do you get the running back that you desperately need to reignite your offense? And your line isn't the worst; it's just your quarterback issues. But you also had a rookie quarterback in there. And kind of a juggling, rotating cast of receivers too.
Right.
Well, I mean, again, regardless of what Cleveland does, the benefit, I guess, to them constantly ditching their first round pick or their first overall pick for year after year after year, is now they have they have the first and the 4th pick.
Mm-hmm.
You can get both. You take Barkley right now at 1, and then you turn around and get your quarterback if that's really the direction you want to go. And you've already given up on DeShone Kizer, which. It sounds like they pretty much have. if you're going to give up on him and you're scouting a quarterback, you get Barkley at 1, you keep your pick at 4, and you get your quarterback, and that's your duo. But you have to make the commitment. Cleveland, I know that we're having issues there. You have to stick with this tandem for the next 3 years and let him grow. You cannot just throw him in there, yank him like you did Kaiser 6 weeks in because he's looking terrible, and just keep playing this carousel game. If you go 0-16 again, they have to stay together and play. You have to.
And the system has to be the same. How many times have we seen it in the NFL where a quarterback, not just a rookie, but anybody, shows some potential, and then year after year after year, they're going through offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches like they're going through pairs of socks.
Well, that's also another point to bring up, too. I just think that now with the GM in charge that's going to really kind of change the mindset of their moves, I think they're going to be he's going to work well with Hugh Jackson. And then I think that they might go get an A.J. McCarron who knows Hugh's system.
Yeah.
And then go get your rookie quarterback to learn the system. Then I think you have some possibilities. I think you have Barkley in as your starting running back at 1. And then I would go take a Josh Allen from Wyoming. I think he might be a better fit for your system. That's what I would do if I'm the Cleveland GM. But we'll wait and see. Other notables from the Combine, though, Shaquem Griffin from UCF, impressive combine.
Oh boy,
definitely improved his draft stock, running a 4.3.
Yo, jeez,
just a phenomenal job. So he's going to definitely move up in the draft rankings on that. And the draft, the combine itself is just kind of a weird thing to watch because now teams are eyeballing certain players, and this is going to make or break what they do on the 14th of March. If they go free agents, because now if a quarterback like, say, Baker Mayfield really stood out, is a Miami going to jump up and get him? Is Buffalo thinking of doing something crazy with that? Who knows? This is the one beauty of the Combine.
Let's say one thing that kind of stuck out to me and kind of made me, go open slack-jawed a little bit was Brian O'Neill, the O-lineman, ran the fastest 40-yard dash with a 4.840 for an O-lineman.
That is impressive.
Oh, my Lord have mercy.
Well, that's the thing, though.
That boy's fast.
But it's one thing to say you can work out and you're a physical athlete. It's another if you can play the game.
This is true.
Because there's been many times where people have blown away the Combine and then just not showing up in the NFL. It's the ultimate roll of the dice. But I think there's some promise coming out of it. And I think if you're Cleveland, you have all the cards in your hand. What's the best deal you can make? I think you go get Barkley. I think that's a no-brainer. And then at 4, you could either flip that pick if you're not sold on one of the quarterbacks or go get another player of your choosing. It's the great thing about having multiple picks in the first round because there are teams out there that we're willing to trade up and go get.
Or we now get our super fast middle linebacker who just ran a 4.32 to help anchor that defense.
Either way, I mean,
that's scary.
It's a lot of stuff you got to think about going into it. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What did you think of the NFL Combine? Who stood out? Who didn't? And how's your team looking going into March 14th, first day of the NFL season of business? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're now on iTunes. That's right. The Ocho Duro Parlay Hour is now on iTunes. So download, rate, and subscribe. Spread the word, and thank you for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour.
I'm the street light guiding you home. Avoid the wrong step into.
Coming back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPH, and we got to talk some UFC. UFC 222 was this past weekend, and man, that was a heck of a fight card.
Woo, Brian Ortega.
Brian Ortega did something which we have never seen done in the octagon before, and that is TKO Frankie Edgar. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, boy. That was nasty.
It was. And honestly, if you told me Ortega was going to win, I wouldn't have doubted you. If you told me he was going to win by knockout, I would have said, you're full of it. And I will say this. Ortega looked phenomenal, and he timed a perfect short elbow. You can't even script it better.
No.
To land. Frankie was in the fight, and then he just got caught with it.
Yeah, it was 1 minute he's there, and the next minute he's on the ground.
Yeah, and Ortega swarmed and did what he needed to do. And, now he's got a fight lined up against Max Holloway which is going to be a phenomenal fight. Frankie, I'm not sure what's going to happen next. I know he's going to definitely want another fight.
Oh, I'm sure he
sooner
will.
than later.
Yeah.
Like I said on the show a couple weeks ago, Jeremy Stevens is the perfect fight for him.
Yeah.
Let them go. Let's see what happens there. There also was some very notable fights on the card, too. I would say definitely a youth movement of new faces in the UFC. Alexander Hernandez tore it up in the prelims.
UFC debut.
Yep. Just first round TKO on Beneil Dariush and just flew out of nowhere from the opening bell. Definitely made a statement. Definitely made some noise in that division, so we'll see what happens after there. John Dodson on his last contracted UFC fight won. And you know what? I definitely think he's coming back in that division. He's coming back to the UFC, and I think 135, you got to give him some competition up there. And Mackenzie Dern won in her debut fight for the UFC. And just going down the card, I think no other new face made their presence felt more than Sugar Shane O'Malley.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
Who gutted through we find out it was not a broken ankle, but we thought it was. But he gutted through and won his fight there. And I was surprised his opponent, Andre Sukahameth, I'm probably butchering the name and I do apologize, did not go after the leg.
No, usually when you watch these fights, something will get injured or, hurt, and they'll start targeting it. And for obvious reasons. That got hurt and he didn't really go for it.
No, and I am very puzzled why, but to Sean O'Malley's credit, and I'm sure he's very thankful for it, he persisted and kept going through it, just showed nothing but heart.
It's like, because there was one point where it wasn't exactly subtle or hidden that it was bothering him.
Oh, you could definitely tell in the third round he couldn't stand.
Yeah, he was literally, if you find footage from the fight, there was one point in the third, he was hopping on one leg.
Yeah, and he just swallowed his pride, swallowed it up and went. And not swallowed his pride because he just showed just tremendous heart fighting through it.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And, I mean, even with the post-fight interview, he was flat on his back, and you knew he was just not getting up. And you knew something was wrong. I didn't hear the extent of it, but I think I did hear that it was not a broken ankle as we thought. But he definitely just stayed in the fight and won it. And, hats off to him about that bright future when he comes back. And as we said, the co-main event, Brian Ortega, T-City, what else can you say? Just made a statement. And definitely raised some eyebrows, too, because like we said, Frankie has never been KO'd before.
No.
And for me watching, that was surreal. I never thought I'd see that. But Ortega landed that perfect short elbow. And I think he was waiting on Frankie to shoot on him for a takedown. And I know Frankie probably was noticing that Ortega has a nasty guillotine and did not want to get caught in one. So I think he was trying to time it just right. But Ortega held it and watched the timing. And he just held it and watched it. And then next thing you know, boom, on the mat he goes.
Yeah, that was frightening.
Yeah, absolutely frightening. And now it's all but locked up for him and Max Holloway, which I don't have an early prediction now. When that fight is solidified, I will definitely have a prediction then. But, man, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that'll be something to see.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something to see. And then your main event, Chris Cyborg versus Yana from Invicta, the 145-pound champion. And Cyborg, weathered the storm early.
Yeah.
Yana took her down and
came out the gate firing because she knew she wouldn't have long before Cyborg would start swarming her.
Well, I think it's the right thing to do because Cyborg has a mystique about her that that Cyborg has one switch and that's forward.
Yeah.
And will consistently give you pressure and just land strikes on you until you're done. Yana knew this, and Yana tried a great game plan about taking her down. But the thing is, Cyborg has a Brazilian jiu-jitsu background.
Yeah.
She is no slouch on her back, and she could definitely hold her own. But Yana could not hold her down to try working any groundwork. And when Cyborg got back up, she just started picking her apart with strikes, which I tell you what, now it's going to get very interesting because with Cyborg rumored to be fighting Amanda Nunes, who will be stepping up, I tell you what, that's going to be a heck of a fight to watch. I don't really know how it's going to go other than Cyborg winning. Nunes will give her trouble, though. Nunes can stand in there and throw some strikes with her. But, boy, I tell you what, Cyborg is just on that other level right now.
Cyborg, when she's, like you said, she's got one motion forward, and she's got a switch she flips when she wants to go in that motion. I was having a conversation with a friend, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. Cyborg, when that switch is flipped, is like a predator or like a great white shark who has smelled blood.
Yeah. Cyborg knows how to finish fights. There is no question of that. And I would say she's probably, arguably, the most feared fighter in the UFC, male or female.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that one.
Because I don't think there's too many people kicking down the door trying to fight her right now.
No.
And it's a shame, too, because I think that Cyborg is going to make her claim that I'm here, I have my belt, come and get it, and there's no contenders. I mean, I'm sure they'll find somebody to, but to give her a real threat?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But I think Nunez is going to give her a good fight. I just see Cyborg winning that one easily.
Yeah, I would imagine so, too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's going to be the trouble moving forward when you have such a dominant champion. But this is when you have any dominant champion in any division. I mean, Anderson Silva went through this for how many years until Chris Weidman came along.
Yep.
And then you also had that with Jose Aldo until Max Holloway came along. When you have fighters that or Conor McGregor too, when you have fighters that just are dominant and just they're in their prime and they're just displaying their expertise and their skills, it's just hard to see that anybody's going to take the belt off them. Not saying somebody couldn't, but it's just who.
It's almost like a team in the NFL being very dominant and just, nobody can really figure out how to beat them because they haven't. The formula's not there. Nobody's figured out the formula to beat Chris Cyborg. Once they figure it out or have an idea of what it is, we'll see if somebody can actually pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the question of all questions. I don't see anybody right now doing it, but it's not to say that somebody's not going to come along and do it. It's going to be something to watch. And speaking of fighters with, unprecedented skill, Khabib, Tony Ferguson, fight is still on.
Still healthy, I take it?
Yes, the promos have been coming out
Good.
for that fight and Rose Namajunas and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. If you have not seen them, check out YouTube. It's giving the fights the recognition they deserve because
Yes.
I don't think people realize how great both fights are. I know we talk about the Khabib fight so much on here, but the Rose Joanna fight is nothing to snooze on either.
No.
That is going to be straight fireworks. I think it's going to go a lot different than the first fight, but I tell you, that's going to just be a fun one to watch. And with now officially Conor McGregor, I believe, is getting stripped of the lightweight title.
Yeah, they haven't exactly updated the graphics yet, but yes, Dana White has confirmed that Conor McGregor will be stripped of his title belt.
By then, and then, I mean, rightfully so, Khabib and Tony Ferguson need to fight for the definitive belt. And then whoever wins that, like we say, if Conor wants to come back and do that fight,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah, he never technically lost in the octagon.
No, he didn't. But it's also his choice of what he wants to do.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
and I think that's going to be the thing about moving forward in that division, that now that he doesn't have the belt, that division can progress a little more.
Thankfully.
Well, yeah, because it's well overdue. You can't be a non-defending champion for as long as he was, for whatever reasons. He's doing the boxing thing. Okay, that's great, but then, relinquish your belt, and then if you're that good, you can come back and win it.
Yeah. It's just another thing you can add to your self-proclaiming resume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I won the belt. I was the two weight division title holder. Went away, did some boxing, came back and won my belt back. I'm still undefeated.
Yeah, and right now the UFC is setting up for a prime run of great fights. I mean, like we say, we've talked about the Khabib fight. We've talked about the Rose Namajunas fight. Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier is coming down the road. They're loading up going into summertime, which is what you want to see out of a fight promotion. You can't go wrong with that.
Not at all.
JR, any comments on this?
Well, considering it's still pretty far away, I'm not counting my chickens. I'm waiting for the Khabib fight to actually happen because we've seen crazier things happen with injuries.
That's
so
true.
I'm just waiting. Until I'm sitting down, we're all there, and we see them enter the ring, I'm going to wait.
Fair enough.
That's a fair point.
Only because I just don't want to get my hopes up like, yes, and then have it just crushed because of some injury or someone got sick or something. Fingers crossed, we're going to have an awesome fight.
We're getting close to a month away from the fight. That's when now it's sinking in. And now everybody so far has been healthy, and that's what we want to see. We want to see fighters going in, no excuses, nor would either fighter make one if they were injured by any means. This is what we want to see as fight fans. We want to see these premier fights. Let us know what you think on this past week's UFC. What was your thoughts on the Edgar Ortega fight? Is Cyborg really the most dominant fighter in all the UFC? Hit us up, hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break, talk some college basketball when we get back.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton. Woo!
Hot lips touching, cool thighs feeling, shawty running up, her spine's been a long day to a long night, but I'm not stopping till I get it right.
Coming back for segment number 3 on this week's ODPH and JR. Let's talk some basketball.
Folks, in case we didn't realize, we are dangerously close to the big March Madness tournament. Who's got their brackets ready?
Getting them ready.
That's right. This week, we're going to get them, baby. Championship week going on right now. Super lit. I've already got my championship week's brackets filled out. How about you guys?
You know, I'm kind of waiting to see how it plays out. I mean, being a Duke fan that I am, I'm already penciling myself in for the winning championship. But, you know, I want to see how everybody else plays out. Hey, don't sleep on Coach K.
Ridiculous.
Don't sleep on Coach
Gotta
K.
admit, didn't know there was conference championship brackets until all of 5 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah. This is lit. I showed everybody, in case you didn't know. I've got them right here. There it
he's
is.
got them.
I'm all ready to go. We can even take a picture. We'll post them. I'll show you. I'm not afraid. We do this every year. A couple of my boys we shout out. Even we dig into the Mountain West. I'm going to be honest. Don't follow it. A10 brackets. We fill them all out just because it's for fun. But super lit. The one I'm focusing on, of course, now that my Cuse team in the ACC, of course, I got the old bracket right here. Of course, I have to fill out 2 of them, unfortunately, because one I always have to give Syracuse the nod, but they're not going to do it.
Probably
they're not going to do it in the
No.
ACC tournament, especially the route they have to go. In my scenario, they would have to face, first of all, they have to face Wake Forest. In case you know, backstory, Syracuse is the 11 going in, by the way,
Yeah.
in the ACC tournament. They have to play Wake Forest first, which I'm a little uneasy about as it is. Winning there would get you to Carolina. Winning there would get you to Miami. Winning there would get you to Duke.
It's a tough road. You don't know what's going to happen, but it's a tough road.
True.
It's
really depressing because I was like, oh, man, I was hoping for an easier run. Definitely not the case because, of course, the ACC is loaded as far as I'm concerned. Lots of big teams there. You've got Virginia, even a scary Louisville team.
Mm-hmm.
Duke's there, of course. North Carolina's there. So that's not overly exciting for me as a Cuse fan. However, crazier things have happened. So I'm pulling for a huge Cuse run here to get us into the tournament because they pretty much have to win the ACC tournament in order to do so. I don't know.
It's the great thing about
I'm
March
freaking out.
because, you know, now there's tournaments all over the place. And this is probably the truest way to decide who champions are. Every division, for the most part, is pretty stacked. Or conference, rather, should I say. So it's going to be kind of hard to pick a number one definitively. Especially this year, college basketball has been so up and down. But I think that's the great thing about it. I think there's parity all over the place.
Right, and I mean, as far as my tournament, as far as my bracket that I filled out here, again, we can take a picture and I'll show you guys. I'm no shame in the game here. My real bracket, not having Syracuse truck everybody in the ACC because I also have to make a real bracket. Let's be real. I've got the Duke North Carolina rematch.
There you go.
In the semis, getting to Virginia Duke in the final of the ACC tournament. I'm going to watch it just because how can you go wrong when you look at this bracket and think you've got Virginia Tech possibly facing Duke? I think that's a good game. You've got North Carolina, Miami. This is all before the tournament. This is what I think this is great. Louisville, Virginia. Clemson, Virginia. You've got all these matchups to me, and man, that is some really good basketball at the ACC tournament. So I will be definitely glued to my television, watching specifically here, cheering on the Cuse
For all of 30 minutes.
as they try to get past Wake Forest initially before they have to face North Carolina. So we'll see. We'll give it a shot.
Now, Wake Forest will be running lobs by halftime.
Yeah.
Wow, Pad.
Annoyingly, I almost agree. I did take them just because I can't not take them to at least win a game, and then getting probably trucked by North Carolina. Let's be real. Not real excited about that. But as far as my ACC tournament concerned, Virginia is in the recent polls is the unanimous number one from what we've heard and what we've seen, because they're pretty much the only team who hasn't lost in the last week or two. But annoyingly, I hate saying this, Duke did have a really good win at home versus North Carolina on senior night.
That they did.
I really hated watching that, and I was expecting you to blow up my phone.
No, I decided to go easy on you.
Yeah, so thankfully the UFC fight was going on, so I was like, yes.
Yeah, that was my distraction right there. I'm not gonna lie.
I was hoping that card was going really good. But anyway, Duke. I've got Duke taking out of the ACC, really making a statement because I mean they've been riding pretty high. So a good statement win against your biggest rival in North Carolina. You're carrying all this momentum. Don't get me wrong, Virginia's really good. Obviously, I mean they've got a lot of faith. They're the number 1 team right now, but something about Duke, and it's you're getting close to March Madness, and you just get that vibe that it's going to be another one of these runs to the Final Four at least.
They always do seem to raise it another level when it comes March.
Well, that's the thing, because when you have elite coaches that are steering these programs, and I mean you can look at Michigan State, Zaga, Villanova. I mean the list goes on for who's in the top 10. But when you have those coaches, and especially with Duke, they're going to get the best out of their players because they know this. They're not, intimidated by March Madness and all the cameras. And like for smaller schools to get in on a conference bid, this is a huge deal. And for them to go there and you're on national television, you're in the biggest tournament in all of sports, how do you not, handle that?
And I mean, as fans, we get awesome. Like, if you look at this bracket, Duke and North Carolina could play in the semifinal match.
Yeah, it just worked out that way.
We get round 3.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's awesome. Like, this is exactly what I love. I want to see these games. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we've talked about it before. I'm not a fan of you watch them, early in the year. Every team does it. We don't accuse anybody of doing it, but you get these D3 schools that you pummel the first 15 games. That's why we don't talk about them.
Yeah.
You see your Dukes, you see your North Carolinas, you see your Kansas. They all start out 13, 14-0, the occasional hiccups, but I mean they're always pummeling out of conference D3 schools, whatever the case may be, to start the year. So it's hard for me to get excited. But then when you're telling me you get this could be the difference between Duke having a 1 or a 2 seed, or Carolina being a 2 seed, not a 4 seed. Now we're getting good here.
Well, now
that's what I'm excited for.
Now you get to the exciting part of the year, because now all these teams are seasoned. They usually spend like you said, the early half you're playing non-conference teams. You're playing some teams that, statistically and on paper probably aren't on the same levels, but you're playing them just, to see what happens. There are upsets that happen. There's no question of that. But now is, okay, your wins get you in the tournament. Your wins keep you in the tournament. So however you want to spin it, that's what happens.
And it's not like some sports where you have generally a good idea who's going to win that game when you look at it. Like you can look at a game like a Duke UNC and think somebody's going to win, but one of those teams could come in and have a bad game.
Absolutely.
You never know.
And if some team is looking ahead at the tournament instead of their own conference, then you're going to see some upsets. I mean, that's why you see, great schools get bounced in the first round.
Yeah.
Because they might be looking at it. Or the team that's facing them has nothing to lose, and they're not going to a tournament bid unless they run the table.
So there's always usually that one game in the big tournament that, it's a huge upset. Nobody saw it coming. And then whatever site you do your bracket on, sends out a notification saying, 50 or 75% of the brackets just got busted.
Reflect back 2 years ago, FFCU, the 15 seed.
Yep.
Got away to the Sweet 16, and everybody's like, wow, hello. The team, again, you didn't even know this, unless you were diehard from the school or lived in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
You had no idea this, and you're like, you don't know their mascot. You couldn't tell who their point guard is. You don't know nothing about this team. And yet suddenly your bracket just got obliterated by this team, and then you're like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Which is the most exciting part about having your bracket busted, in my opinion.
But that's you're exactly right, because on paper, everybody has a chance. Because once you get to the tournament, all bets are off, because who shows up that game is going to be the one that you watch.
I mean, unless you're a 16 seed, then there's literally almost no hope. And I hate saying that because I'm one of these years it's got to happen. You've got to see a massive upset. And why not this year?
Well, that's the thing. It could happen. There's no question about it. It just depends on what team shows up that day. And one of these years, yeah, you're right, a 16 is going to win. And everybody's going to go, whoa. But if you really watch, there's so much parity now that the lesser-known schools are playing better and getting better players. And they're hanging in there. So it's not so much a runaway as it usually is for a number 1 seed. I mean, how many times have we seen in the past, 10, 20 years, a 15 upset of 2? I mean, really, what's the difference other than a couple wins here and there between a 2 and a 1?
I'm telling you, I reflect back every time when I remember the school that was Davidson with the point guard. You may know him now as the one Steph Curry.
I might have heard of the name.
Maybe you've heard of him. Kind of he did okay.
He's all right.
He's all right. Obliterated my bracket when I had him play Georgetown that year, and Georgetown absolutely just got a truck because the Steph Curry train was officially on, which is exciting.
Yeah,
frustrating because you're like, oh, my bracket has just got busted completely. My champion's already gone. I'm way out of my pool. But it was also really awesome to watch because now you're pulling for the underdogs, and that just makes it even cooler.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the thing. I know next week we're going to be devoting a good majority of the show to the brackets because it'll be tournament time starting next Thursday.
Selection Sunday.
Yep, Sunday will be a big day, so stay by your computers, stay by your social media because when the brackets come out, you know it's going to be hitting hard. We're going to be talking about it on there. It's all Duke or nothing. You're preaching to the wrong choir about that one, my friends.
I'm also really excited because it is, like I said, it is championship week. Here in the 607 especially, big fan. Ivy League now has a tournament.
Oh, Lord.
Listen, y'all can hate on this, whatever you want, but listen, Cornell Big Red, baby. They sneak in as the 4. That's my big roots here, okay? Big roots. You got Harvard, the number 1 seed. Listen, Cornell can get it. Listen, it takes 2 wins to get out of the Ivy League, and you're going to go right in there. Cornell's going to get it done.
I'm not going to lie. As someone who lives in the 607, it'd be kind of cool to see Cornell in the tournament.
It would be. It would be.
They made it to the Sweet 16, 5 years ago?
It was cool to see Binghamton University in the tournament, albeit I knew they had a snowball's chance and where of beating Duke.
Well,
that's a
the
tough
thing.
matchup.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's a hard opening tournament.
I remember in the area, everyone was really excited. Oh, hey, BU won. We're going to get into the tournament. And then the brackets came out, and I'm like, oh, well, that was a nice trip.
But you know what? They hung in there, but they got in foul trouble early that game, so that happens. But especially when you have a coach like Coach K, he's going to have his boys ready, and they were ready to go that night. But that's a whole other different story, though. Getting back to the task at hand, the tourneys are going to be starting up this week. I'm excited to see the ACC tournament because I think now that's the premier conference in college basketball. And just looking at the matchups you could have with Carolina meeting Duke in the semis, Virginia has no easy feat coming in. I mean, they could fight anybody from NC State to. I'm trying to see your bracket from
They got Clemson.
Clemson, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the possibilities are endless. And that's the great thing about it. So you're going to see a tournament before the tournament, and that's going to be kind of your precursor because if somebody has a bad game in the tournament, you trust me, they're going to come out swinging on the first minute. They get in the dance of 64.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a massive fan of Championship Week. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely do. However, I've kind of taken a different angle this year from it, too. I've listened to a couple different blogs online and read some different articles, and you know what? It's given me this different kind of perspective. So when you look at teams that don't have a championship bracket going into you just win your division outright. When you look at, say, the ACC tournament, okay, you get someone like Q's. Let's just use Syracuse as the example, okay? Unranked, okay? They're bidding to get into the tournament, right?
Yeah.
By playing in an ACC title championship, they now get the chance to, at the end of their season, get a top 5 win to help boost their resume, which to me is, I'm a little torn about it because I like the idea of them being able to play, but then you see some of these smaller schools that they don't have the chance to boost their resume. They just play their games, then their season's over.
Mm-hmm.
They're just outright champions, and then they don't get a chance to face a Duke, and if they can beat a Duke, that solidifies them getting over the hump and into the tournament. You get what I'm saying? So I mean, for me, it's like, when you're watching, it's great because, of course, I'm pulling for Cuse to get a big win over North Carolina because if they do, that can solidify them. That gives them, Joe Lunardi and those guys a chance to get in because it proves that they can compete against a top 5, top 10 team, but it's after the season.
Yeah.
That's the disappointing part, at least from that regard, is that now you're going based off that, not your regular season like some of the smaller schools. They don't get a chance to do that. This is boosting your resume against a top 5, top 10 team.
And that's the thing. You want to make sure you have as much a high profile going into the tourney for seeding because that's everything in there. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPH. What conference championship games are you going to be watching this week? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Ciatoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
Closing out this week's ODPH with the local minute. Pad, what you got?
Well, Binghamton Devils are home Friday and Saturday this week. Friday, they are playing the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Penguins. Game time 7:05. Saturday, they are playing the Hershey Bears. Game time 7:05.
Can't go wrong with the Bing Devils, but we have to shout out them Binghamton Bulldogs.
Ooh, boy.
Now, the season is wrapped up officially. They won 136-96 over the Rock City Ravens this past week.
Grief.
Ralph Bucci had 11 points, Jimmy Gray 28, Kai Sutton 15, Chris Cartwright 10 points. And the Bulldogs are now finished their season 12-3. So, why is this relevant, you ask? Because the ABA playoffs are finally starting. Now, as we are taping, they have not released the seedings and opponents just yet, but Binghamton has clinched the first seed in the East bracket.
Good for them.
Yes. So Binghamton will be the number one in the East when their opponent and venue is announced, but the Bulldogs will be hosting the first 3 rounds of the playoffs in Binghamton should they continue to win. Excuse me on that. With the first game being Saturday, March 10th, 7:05. The opponent and venue are still to be determined. So stay tuned to binghamtonbulldogs.com or their Facebook page for more information. But ABA basketball is going to be kicking off this weekend. If you're in town Saturday night, find out where the Bulldogs are playing. Get there and support your local hometown team. Number 7 in the ABA, 20-3. It's tournament time, single elimination, so make sure to get out there and support them dogs. Enough said. Go check out their site for more information. But before we close it out, we got to take one final lap around the bases. Pad, what you got to lead us off?
Interesting report coming out today. The ageless wonder that is Ichiro Suzuki will supposedly be re-signing with the Seattle Mariners, of course, the team that he originally played for when he came over to the States.
Interesting.
Yeah, 44 years old, turns 45 in October. Looked like he was going to hang it up. I believe he said he was going to hang it up last year. He said it was going to be his final year. Doesn't seem to be ready to call it quits just quite yet.
Well, I mean, he'll be good for the Seattle clubhouse, and, you know, he's beloved out there.
Oh, my God, they love him to death.
Yeah, so it makes sense. And when he's ready to go, he's going to go.
Yeah.
JR, what you got?
Oh, baby, you know, it's golf season, and I'm getting ready here, even though as we're recording, there's another winter storm warning coming our way. So that's exciting. So golf is not in my immediate future. However, I did watch the incredible ageless wonder lefty get his first win in 5 years. Phil Mickelson beating up on the youngins. It was awesome. Got a win in the playoffs. I thought it was great. I'm so ecstatic to see it. This is like if Tiger were to come back and the two of them had like an epic like Sunday showdown. Oh, man, that would be awesome. But we got to see the incredible Phil Mickelson in his late 40s get a big win. Super stoked. It's awesome for the sport. Really excited.
You know, golf is counting down to get to the Masters. I mean, that's the one I really watch. So, hey, anytime golf is getting excited in March, you know it's a good one. Rounding the bases to take us home this week, John Jones had his hearing with the California State Athletic Commission. His license in California has been suspended until August of 2018, and he has a $205,000 fine. But he's not out of the woods just yet. He still has his hearing with USADA coming up, so stay tuned for that. That's all the sports talk we have for this week. So for the Padawan J, Sound Guy Galore JR, go support them Binghamton Bulldogs this weekend. I am your host, Ken M. Thank you for listening to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. We'll see you next time.
Instead of making promises in the dark, why don't we just play our part? 'Cause I'm all alone and you're all alone tonight. Act like lovers, but we're not even friends. You can see the end, but it feels good to pretend didn't matter